Hi guys, so before we get into it today, a very quick disclaimer that there will be spoilers, but I will at least refrain from telling you the names of the killer or killers, but for the most part, yeah, there will be a lot of spoiling. So, okay, so a few weeks ago, somebody in the comments section mentioned Blood and Black Lace as a potential film I might want to check out, and that stuck with me, and here we are today. Now, I've only seen one Maria Bava film before. That was A Bay of Blood, and I really enjoyed that, actually. I'd like to review that film as well at some point. I didn't like Blood and Black Lace quite as much, and I think the main reason for that is because I came into this expecting a giallo film, albeit a fairly early version of giallo. But what this actually is, really, it's kind of half giallo, half crime noir. You've got, like, cops in big long trench coats and endless nicotine and saxophones and all that kind of stuff. It's not really my bag. I felt very conflicted about this film at several points during it. The first scene, for instance, the main credit scene that introduces the movie, you've got these fantastic visuals where all the characters we're going to see later in the film are shown one by one just doing this like pose, and it looks really cool actually. But it's kind of spoiled a little bit by the cheesy music that plays over the top of it. It's just not my style of music. This same musical piece actually almost ruins one of the chase sequences later on, and it plays again at the end. I just didn't like it. It just really didn't fit my ear. So the story for this, we've got a fashion house in Rome, although it's a little bit confusing at the start because you see the words haute couture and you just think it must be Parisian, but then you go on Wiki and it says Rome, and all the actors are speaking in Italian, so I guess we're going to go with Rome, all things considered, but it doesn't matter. So we've got a model who gets killed, a woman, and I think it's meant to only be one murder, but then the murderer, or murderers, has to then kill a second person to cover up the first one, and then a third person, and it just kind of escalates, it becomes a spree. I'm sure I've seen this exact template in one of Argento's films in the 70s. I just can't think of which one it might be. Possibly Cat o' Nine Tails. Possibly Argento did this more than once. I don't know, but definitely Dario was heavily influenced by this film and by Maria Bava in general, not just in terms of the story, but also the style of this film, with all the very thoughtful camera shots that you can see and the pinks and purples in the fashion house. It's a very opulent location. It looks extremely classy. Everybody's wearing clothes that look $1 million. I could believe in this world that even the bellboys and the porters are really well paid and they never lack for food or you know, the finer things in life. I had to laugh though. So, okay, so if this was real life, I could believe that a fashion house might look like this, maybe. But antiques stores, not so much. You know, I think of antique stores and I think of really dusty places with like a rag and bone man, and you walk around looking at the wares and the spider might come down near your shoulder. But in this film, the antique store that we see is like an extension of the fashion house. It's like an outpost of that fashion house. It's got more pinks and purples and a guy wearing a really fancy suit, and it's not hard to believe watching this film that a glamour model would have a romantic relationship with somebody running an antique store, because I would have had a problem with that, I think, before watching this. But yeah, going back to Dario, I could easily picture him watching this in the 60s and thinking, you know what, if I just dial down that LA Confidential shit, I could really be laughing all the way to the bank with this subgenre. Definitely the best thing about this film are the kill scenes, that and just how classy and stylish the overall film looks, I guess. But I was impressed with just how much variety there is with the deaths in this. Probably my favourite kill is the hide and seek game in the antique store. There's a fantastic kind of slow strobe light effect that you get, and whenever the killer gets caught out in the light, it's really creepy actually. I love the difference in build-up between the antique store scene and a kill which comes later, where we just randomly cut to a woman being strangled in like a sink or a bathtub. It's just brilliant how, boom, we're straight into that bathtub scene. We just join it halfway through, whereas with the antique store one, there's all this really long build-up and tension as we follow this one woman as she slowly goes around the store looking for a way out. All the kills in this have got some nuanced difference to them. It's really impressive, actually, the amount of work that Bava put into the kills in this. I suspect he put more work in on the kills than anything else. But sadly, from here on out, it's mostly comments from me of a more negative slant, I'd say. And I guess next I'll go to the characterization, because there's just not much in this film at all. All the fashion models in this just seem pretty much the same for me. The film definitely lacks a protagonist, somebody with an interesting backstory, somebody with issues whilst this murder mystery thing is playing out, and how is she going to cope with her own issues and this murderer who's turned up / murderers. But we don't really get that at all. We just get like a bunch of fashion models who all come in and do their little bit, and then they die, and then we're just left with a couple of killers squabbling towards the end of the movie. There's only one bit of characterization that I can remember in this, which is a moment where one of the girls appears to be a bit of an ice queen because she can wear the clothes of the girl who died the night before. So this kind of draws the ear of some of her colleagues, but apart from that, to me, they're just a bunch of good-looking women who die, and then I can't remember much else about them, which is a bit of a shame, really. I think there was a massive emphasis in this movie on style and kills, and not that much at all on character. The worst characters of all are of the killers, actually, and I get that I've given away the plural in that, but I did say that there would be spoilers. But this pair, by the end of this film, they're like a couple of plonkers from an episode of Columbo, which is a bit of a switcheroo from how they are earlier on in the film, because for quite a long time in this, they're very effective and clinical, and they show evidence of being able to think on their feet and improvise. But then you get to the third act and they just become a couple of bumbling idiots. It's quite the turnaround, really. Plus, there's no traditional finale in this where you get a protagonist taking on this pair. What we get is basically the two killers just going at each other. Like, while this was going on, I was thinking to myself, have we got no fashion models left who can come along and sort these two out? I'd even take one of the cops coming back at this point, but no, we don't get that. It's literally just killer versus killer to end the movie, and I didn't really find that to be all that interesting because I didn't really like the characters of either one of them. I didn't care who wins at all. It reminds me of the ending to War of the Roses with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, and I don't remember caring that much which one of those two survived the chandelier, to be honest. Plus, there's some really bad logic going on in terms of how these two killers plan to kill each other, especially on the side of the guy, because he comes up with this trap where he tricks the woman into going out on a ledge, and he's fiddled with the drain pipe a little bit so that she'll grab onto it and then fall off. But it's all too elaborate, you know. Planning something like this in the real world, it just doesn't, it never pans out the way you want it to. And to be fair, it doesn't in this film either. The woman survives the fall that comes along, and then she comes back inside and kills the guy, but she's mortally wounded from her fall, so she dies too. So they basically killed each other. And I guess it's meant to feel like a nice, neat and tidy ending where justice takes care of itself, but I just found it too far-fetched, and I didn't really enjoy it, I've got to say. And then, just to rub salt in the wounds, that annoying saxophone music comes on just to finish things off. And there's another thing that's a bit off as well. Like, when we first see the killers unmasked, they're lying on a bed, I think, and they're coming out with all this really unnatural dialogue about how they got to this stage of the film, but you can tell that this dialogue is there just for our benefit, the audience. It doesn't really feel like a conversation that would actually happen. It feels very, very fabricated, so I think there could have been a bit more script doctoring to be done with that scene, definitely. Normally at this point in the review I would show you a copy of the film that I'm reviewing, but I don't actually own a physical edition of Blood and Black Lace, and I count myself quite fortunate actually that I don't, because when I went on eBay to hunt out a copy of this film, the cheapest I could find was about £25, which is quite a lot of money for one film. I decided to swerve it and given that I'm not totally in love with this, I think I made the right decision. I ended up watching this on Amazon Prime instead. It's actually free on Amazon at the moment if you're in the UK and you've got Prime. Definitely well worth checking the film out, just in case you like it more than me. But I think from my point of view, it's a film that I respect, and it's certainly one that I enjoyed watching once, but I don't think it's going to become one of my favourite horror films from the 60s or anything like that. And certainly, I definitely prefer A Bay of Blood when it comes to Maria Bava. Right. All that remains to do now is to go to the Bag of Terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give Blood and Black Lace. So, we've got 1, 2, 3 bloody axes out of 5. I suspect that there are probably quite a lot of fans of this film out there who might just take umbrage at me only giving the film that score, and I can imagine people raising a few issues with some of the points that I have, but I'm just calling it as I see it. I thought it was good, but nothing better than that necessarily. So I'll leave it there for today. I'll be back soon to do another review. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.